905. And the current temperature is 82 degrees.
I'm Sam Scott for KTUI.
Welcome back. Here we are live at the White Mule Winery on the high plains of Gascoyne County. 87 degrees here at airtime. A blue sky we have, and summer is amongst us without a doubt. A week here, another week I should say, without any rain, and we are in desire of getting some rain here for the grass and for the crops. The week, this last week, the humidity was down, which helps a little bit. It helps sustain, some of the grass for the cattle, and we'll take what we got. But we're in hopes that this week Sam will bring us some rain on Sunday, and if not, we'll wait until it comes. Good to have you along here this morning on KTUI 1560 AM, 94.1 FM, or possibly you're watching us live on Facebook. If so, good to have you aboard here this morning, and a great weekend we had last weekend here for one of the most worthy, if not, I would say the most worthy cause that we participate in here. The Owensville Car Club had a benefit for the honor flight, and it just doesn't get any better than that. I think they raised north of $15,000 here. That goes an awful long way to sending a full flight of attendees back to Washington, D.C. to get a little honor and a little respect that many of them have not had, especially in the later years of Vietnam, the Afghanistan. People are somewhat unaware of those, and of course WW2. There's still a few of those around, not many. And the Korean War, they're all can participate in the honor flight. It's a free of charge situation for all vets. They have sponsors that go along with them, and handicapped or aged people. They just do a very good job of accommodating all of their needs. So we're proud to be part of that fundraiser, and we will continue to do it as long as they have needs there, without a doubt. So it was a great day. A lot of people here, and they raised a good sum of money, and Gracie had a good time.
It was a good day. Beautiful weather too.
It was absolutely gorgeous, and that helped. I think there was a little thread of rain. It didn't really do anything, but some very nice cars here, and I know some of those cars, they said, stayed at home, because I don't blame them. We're on dirt here, and if it rains, they put an awful lot of time and effort in manicuring those cars, and it's just the way it is. So during that period of time here, I met our next guest. Never had met Mr. Hill before, but Dustin Hill is running for the U.S. Congress, state of Missouri, and district of that is?
3rd District, sir.
3rd District.
Yes, sir.
And since they've gerrymandered this again, it has changed, but that was the 9th district, correct?
So we lost the 9th district in 2010 after the census there.
Okay.
So Missouri only has 8 districts now. Our current congressman, Mr. Blaine Luetkemeyer, was the 9th district congressman,
right,
and then got redistricted into the 3rd. So he's been in since about 09, or since 09, yes. So
yes, and so that it was the old 9th district is what I was trying to explain here. And yeah, you're right. We lost a congressman, which basically means that Missouri is not growing as fast as some of the other areas because it's all about one person, one vote, so to speak, and
Sure.
you know, they're all apportioned in regard to that. Dustin, a congressman now has how many people approximately in that district?
So before we had in the third about 800,000 people. Now we're up to about 1 million in the new district. The new district, 25% of it became kind of fresh territory, so to speak. It's interesting because I've given out a lot of cards, you know, and they've got the counties on the back. And we lost Southern Warren, we lost Franklin, but we gained, let's see, we lost Lincoln too. Don't forget about them. We gained Washington County, Crawford County, Montauk County, Southern Boone County, Cooper County. We retained kind of the northeastern corner of Camden County. The ones that we kept were Marys, Miller, Montgomery, where I'm from originally. We kept Warren County north of 70. That's about the borderline. We also kept St. Charles County, kind of the sliver between the rivers there, a lot of the rural area. Gasconade, we obviously kept them in the third. Cole County, we kept. Osage County, we kept. So, yeah, about 25% of the third district is new to being the third district, which I kind of see as an advantage in this race.
It makes it rural. There's
Exactly,
no
yeah.
question about it. When you go south of here and you
Right, yeah.
mention those new part of the third district,
Right, yeah.
you know, you have to have a person in that particular area
Right,
that
yeah.
speaks well to the rural people.
I think so, yeah. And I mean, I was sad to see Lincoln County go because I'm from Middletown, Missouri, population 167.
I know where Middletown is.
Oh yeah, well that's the good thing about being in this area is people actually know where Middletown is. But we lost Lincoln County. You know, I'd done some quick campaigning up there. We lost Franklin, which was sad. So there's a bunch of signs and cards floating around Franklin County. I hope people aren't going to the polls going, "Where's that Dustin Hill guy?" Sorry to disappoint. People ask me, especially the E-Missourian out of Washington in Franklin County, asked me, they called me after the redistricting that happened. We got in the cards made maybe 2 weeks before, and I just said...
because people aren't going to remember this, but
Right.
that was all up in the air,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Until after the fact, and then there was changes made.
Yeah, we the last thing we'd heard, because we had to get something made to start giving out to people, the last thing we'd heard was Jay Ashcroft, our Secretary of State, get on a radio show in Jefferson City and say, yeah, we're just going to keep the lines the way they were. So I said, okay, let's print them, get those cards out, but we left ourselves a little tiny note on the bottom that said, you know, all these counties, and then maybe some more. So, yeah, but... you know, people ask me about it, and it's the state's game, Mr. Schlottig, and as a federal candidate, that's what I got to play by. So,
Absolutely, and you know, it's kind of a situation where you can tell things aren't going to everybody's liking.
Right.
And
They never will.
City of Jefferson, you
Right,
know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Because you know, the Senate and of course, you know, they have help doing that, of course, but you know, they're the ones that kind of set that district, and you know, there was an argument, you know what I'm saying, or a debate in regard to
a
where
discussion, yeah, it's a heated discussion ensued, yeah.
So, you know, it is what it is now, and, you know, to a big degree, I don't know how other areas were impacted, but I have no problem, you know what I'm saying,
Sure.
living in the third district, to be associated with all of those,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
that are with us, because I think the thinking is, you know, alike. You know, of course, we're on a lot of Franklin County here, and I represented
Yeah.
represent Franklin County, or a lot of the rural areas of it, but this is rural, and you can stick to, you know, issues that are important to rural people, and you know, not only campaign along those lines in regard to what's important to us, but also when you get yourself in a position you can effectively govern. You
Yeah,
know,
I think so, yeah.
to continue to help agriculture, continue to help small business people,
Yeah.
continue to support guns and, the values that are representative here in mid-Missouri.
Yes, sir. And one of the big things that my campaign is focused on is I actually left home in 1998. I went to Mizzou for a semester. I thought I was going to be a nuclear submarine officer, but actually enlisted in the Marine Corps after a semester in Mizzou because, I was 18. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So, both my parents were Air Force, so of course I'm going to enlist in the Marine Corps. So after 8 years of special operations, I did the invasion of Afghanistan, kept it kind of here in Missouri. But the big thing with the campaign now is after I got out of Afghanistan last year, I got out a week before Kabul fell. Using that experience, especially the 2 years I worked at a high-level contract in D.C. I'd torn a shoulder tendon overseas, needed to do something a little, more desk-like. It's finally as if I've really come home to Missouri. I'm not ready to just head right back out the door. And a big part of my campaign is giving back to, the hometown, the home county, the home district that raised me. People say when you send a young man off to war, he takes his hometown with you. And that was certainly true with me. When the bullets start flying and bombs start going off, it's too late for somebody to learn integrity or leadership or those things that are inculcated into him by his hometown, by his coaches, by his teachers, by the people that raised him. And I owe my home county and my hometown, Middletown, Wellsville, where I graduated from, and the home district here, a tremendous deal. And this campaign is a lot about me coming back and giving back to the Missouri taxpayer, the American taxpayer. I earned my degree in economics in 2015 out of Georgia State. I studied abroad in Egypt, Arabic and economics in 2011. Actually studied economics in a country that was convulsing from bad economics, bad governance.
Yes.
And then I was actually studying graduate level economics in 2017 in Norway when I got that high clearance to return to DC. I wanted to do another semester. I said, maybe you guys could let me do it. And they were like, no, you will come back right now and do this. And then went back on the road, did 2 years in DC, didn't like it, got out of there in June 2020. And I'm glad I did because, I'm a Missouri boy. And DC, it was an interesting experience to see and learn how the federal government uses these endless programs and war zones and projects to extract our hometown wealth through inflation. And so a big part of this has been for me is coming home and kind of letting people get that signal through the noise. Because if you look at the administration right now, and I try not to as much as I can just for my own sanity, the messaging is all about, blame everybody else that you can. Grocery prices through the roof, gas prices through the roof, everything's through the roof. That's not our fault. It's Putin or illegal immigrants. I mean, they'll just throw anything they can at the wall. And explaining to people that the federal government is the only entity that can borrow money into existence. And as it borrows that money into existence to fund itself, there's where the inflation comes from. Because as that currency now hits the population in general, it dilutes all our currency. And on this campaign, I've met a lot of state and local reps, and my heart really goes out to them because state and local people are just trying to hold this thing together while we're basically just being extracted, our wealth is. And, a lot of people in the federal government are just like you and me. They're, not elected officials, but people working in the DC bubble. They're people with families, they're people, I was one of them. I was just a Missouri kid that had now a special operations background and an education, so I worked in there. It's the system itself. Our legislative, our congressional system now is beholden to an entire class of people that they now work for, and they work in this arena to keep us managed and distracted. And we've got to set this right. And a lot of people ask me a lot of times, it sounds like you just want to tear down the U.S. government, and that's not true. The U.S., take it from a guy who has collapsed foreign governments. That's what we do when we militarily invade places. We do not want to see that in this country. The devastation and degradation that brings is horrible. But I am trying to save the federal government from itself. It seems to be on a path where they're going to try and hyperinflate the currency to devalue their debt, and we are caught in the crosshairs. It's hard for state and local, or just people in general, to build something when 20% of your currency's value is being extracted every year. My goal when I came home to rural Montgomery County was to take over the family farm. You know, maybe get married, maybe have some kids or whatnot. But it's hard to do that when you come home and, you know, half of Middletown's gone. And everyone's working harder and harder and harder, but we've got a parasite on our backs. You know, that is one-third the size of the entire U.S. economy. The budget of the federal government last year was nearly $7 trillion. The entire GDP of the country is around $23 trillion. You know, that is not sustainable, I think.
And our debt is over $30 trillion.
Exactly, but, you know, and this is where I get into the hyperinflationary cycle, is if they can make the currency worth 20% less, right? Well, that $30 trillion still stays $30 trillion, but it's only worth $24 trillion now. It's a sleight of hand, it's insidious, and you know, I think this is the door that the establishment has opened wide open for somebody like me. This is a job application. This campaign is a job application to my home district, who has had a guy in office for about 14 years. I think the vast majority of people in the district have said, you know what, that's too long. And I agree. It is too long, because Congress has gotten captured by the very people that they're supposed to be watching over for us.
Well, you know, talking about the length of time in office, there's Missouri solved that problem. You know,
right.
We solved that problem, and I was a benefactor of term limits, because it probably the door wouldn't open for me until Doc Townley decided not to run, whenever that might have been. But I was in, of course, county government, and you know, it opened up and had a desire to do that. You know, the thing, you know, in my thought process, things are never as simple as they appear.
Sure.
There is never
as simple as they want you to believe they are.
Yes, on either side or whatever you're talking about. These are complex matters. There's no doubt about it. Are people there too long? There's no question. You know, they are there sometimes way too long. But you look at the whole picture and you realize that an awful lot of institutional knowledge is lost in that process, and you know, somebody else pulls that void, and most of the time it's lobbyists. You know, most of the time it's lobbyists that pull in those reins, and they you know, have control. If there's not knowledge of what happened here, you know, 10 years ago in the legislative process, if that's all gone, then they have a lot of knowledge. There's no question about it at all. And money is the currency that politicians live on, and there's a control factor. I mean, I went there, you know, poor and broke, and you know, in debt, and
nowhere else to go.
But I enjoyed it. It was a great process. But the opportunity, you know, was always there. You know, to you know, to shade the gray and to say, well, I believe in this or I don't believe in that or whatever it is. But it is never so simple. But I think at a federal level that term limits is something that we have to do.
Yeah. So I'm actually was approached by the Term Limit Pledge organization, and I'm actually signing that today and sending it out because I do believe term limits are useful. But like you say, it's never so simple. And having been part of the national security state bureaucracy, they would love to see nothing more than hardcore term limits on federal elected officials, because then they become even more manageable. What we have to do when I talk about term limits is I'm for term limits on government employees at the federal level too. I don't think the federal level, especially the ones that I've seen, you should be there for 20, 30, 40 years. This is the state, this is the bureaucracy that has captured our elected officials now. Now, how you make that happen, well, not so simple. But it's definitely worth looking at if you want the elected officials. What we want in this country is we want our elected officials to control the bureaucratic state. The bureaucratic state, the executive branch, has grown so massive and so powerful, and they're so entrenched at this point that Congress has actually outsourced its legislative making to about 150 rulemaking agencies, right? Because they don't want to put their name down on something where they can be held to it later. And especially my background as a war zone contractor, as somebody who's been at the forefront of America's foreign policy for nearly 23 years, is Congress has outsourced its war making, war declaring powers, because they learned the administration and the executive branch and the bureaucracy, it learns over time. And a lot of our elected officials looked at...
No matter who they are.
Yeah, yeah. They looked at the debacle that was Iraq, the invasion there, and they said, oh, man, I mean, remember, Hillary Clinton, I think a big part of her losing to Barack Obama was Barack Obama didn't vote for the Iraq war, right? And Hillary Clinton did. So she put her name down, they declared war, and then it came back and bit her, right? And so they've outsourced this. Now they just put a bill in front of our congressmen and they say, whether it's Ukraine, that was the big thing that spurred me into this race, was I was just out in Afghanistan, saw that debacle, Biden gets in, and within another year, guess what? We're right back into something else. Now, most people don't know what's going on in Ukraine. Most people don't know what's going on in Syria, Iraq, any one of these different war zones going all around the world. And guess what? Congress doesn't really weigh in either. They put a National Defense Authorization Act, they fund the Defense Department, they say sign it. And if you sign this and give us our money for our wars and our toys, then guess what? You get to go play with your toy or whatever your particular thing is. And this is how they've twisted the entire thing all the way around, where now the state, the executive branch, now runs Congress.
Of course.
And that was a big thing with the term limits pledge, was they did a study and they said, a congressman, a typical congressman, for the first 6 years he's in office, the money that he gets to run comes from his district. But then after about 6 years, all of a sudden the money changes, and now the money comes from D.C. So really, who's in
because of
charge?
their influence and their importance on the committees, and their, they are funded by huge funds, from whoever. I mean, if you want to talk about the military, just go down the list. Because there's not a Boeing, a Halliburton. There's, I have no idea how much they spend. I don't have any idea, but there is a profit motive in for them to have
the Secretary of Defense
control.
Yeah, is from is he from Raytheon? I forget which board he was serving on. I mean, how is that not a conflict of interest, like on its face there?
And that goes both.
Maybe Lockheed Martin, I think.
It goes, it goes both ways, because look at Cheney. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was an executive also. But it's the system.
Exactly. Yes.
It is absolutely the system that we need to break through. And Dustin, I'm not exactly sure how to do that. It will not be done overnight.
No,
Certainly
no.
it takes a commitment to do that. But even on the simplistic little things like Gasconade County politics, when I run for commissioner, had ideas, and we got some things done here. We brought some accountability, to it. We start tracking, things so we knew where the dollars were going on every road mile. This is simple stuff, but it takes a process to do that.
Right.
And, we give the employees some benefits, but we also, through attrition,
Right.
got bigger trucks and fewer motor graders, but when you walk in there, okay, there's 30-some people who work on the road department, and that far from all there is in county commission, because it's there. But you got to realize I was 38 years old, what I'm saying, presiding commissioner, walked in there and think you're going to make a lot of changes, and it didn't take me very long to realize that we've got 10 motor grader operators to make me look pretty stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, they're all out there. To, if you tell them to ditch it on one side, they might leave the ditch on the other side out of whatever just to make me look stupid because, they can, and they work together, and these are great people that work there. Don't misunderstand me.
Of course.
They're good people. They've got experience and whatever, but they too want to keep control to some degree and do things as they have did things and don't want to change. So, it's a hard thing to do. I think the benefit to some degree now is that if you really want, I don't know what you can believe, but there is enough media out there, I'm saying? There is enough facts out there. If you diligently follow all of those, maybe there's more information. There is more information available today than ever before.
Sure. Yeah.
How much is credible, though?
Yeah, well, that's the noise that I talk about, right? And that noise serves the establishment because it's so hard to find that signal. And like I said, this is the big door that they've left wide open. Coming home to Missouri and telling people, hey, let me explain this. Let me explain how the federal government's doing this. Because guess what? People shouldn't need to have an economics degree to understand money. They shouldn't have to have a bachelor's of business administration to not have their money, sucked out of them. And one of the worst things this government has done was, obviously, and I don't think we should have stayed on the gold standard. You need a flexible money supply to encourage growth. But what we've done is we've inflated away that money's value through 50 years because we loaded the Federal Reserve with too many mandates. The only mandate that the Federal Reserve started with when it was back and truly independent was price stability. Now, the Federal Reserve, I'm not a big fan of it. It's destroyed our currency. It's been a tool of the powerful since its inception. And then once in '71, once we went off the gold standard, it was just off to the races. And that's when you see this big shift in American culture. Once we start eroding the value of the currency, everything else gets eroded too. Our currency, the dollar, is a social contract.
Sure.
We can talk about the founding documents, we can talk about the social contracts, the legal codes, but in everybody's pocket right now is a social contract that forms one half of every transaction you do. When I buy a bottle of wine here at this winery later, I'm going to pay you in US dollars. And that social contract, as it's been eroded out, guess what? Everything else does too. And the one that I look especially to is war. Our wars, since we became, a fiat currency system, we haven't seemed to win any. The wars become a business now. Instead of government going over there, getting the job done, and then getting home, instead they become a business. And this is how we won the Afghan conflict in maybe less than 6 months, but we were there for 20 years. We spent trillions of dollars. We lost thousands of lives. For what? To keep prices in the DC bubble inflated, to keep the money going, to keep the circus going. And I always take, when people ask me if I'm an isolationist, no, I'm not. I'm a selective interventionist. George H.W. Bush, the last president who was a combat veteran like myself, people wanted him to go to Baghdad after Desert Storm and take out Saddam. And he said, you know what, no. We came out here, we did what we needed to do. We can argue those merits about liberating Kuwait, and obviously there was monetary things behind that. But we're not going to go into this quagmire. And that's why you didn't see 20 years of veterans coming home blown up, shot, dead, that now the American public is on the hook for in the VA. And that's one of the things I give him credit for. But guess what? The establishment learned, right? He didn't win re-election. So then his son gets into office, and what does he do? Hey, we've got the Afghan thing going. Hey, let's go to Iraq. Let's go all. And then we started all these war zones. Americans don't even know how many war zones we're in. They don't even know how many fields I've worked in, because they're not allowed to. Because if we did, then we'd get to debating. Then there'd be an uproar. We'd be kicking these bums out, so to speak. They go to the congressman, they put a bill in front of him, and they say sign it, and they do, and we're on the tab for it.
And, let's switch just a little bit to, the economics that we are in here today. Because
yes, sir.
We're a product of all of those particular policies that have driven economics to where they are today. Kind of a global, situation right. To a big degree. But it's not only military,
right.
And it's not only Democrats. A lot of Republicans also that
sure.
have, put us in a situation where we thought, let's go ahead and make our chips somewhere else. Even though we had all the technology, we give it, to
I thought you were talking about potato chips first. That's the first thing that came into my head. I was like, chips, what's he talking about? Oh, you're talking about the silicon, yeah, the wafers, yeah. Our technology.
Yes. I mean, we owned all of that, and we decided to
outsource.
Give it out because of cheap labor supply.
Exactly.
And now it is biting us. We just a couple of weeks ago went down to Lexington in Kentucky and went seeing the parking lots full of Ford trucks. What I'm saying?
Are they waiting on chips?
Waiting on chips.
That's it, yeah.
I mean, you go to Churchill Downs and all their parking lots and many factories,
sure.
Through there are waiting on these chips, and now we're finally starting to think about bringing them home, but it's going to be a long period of time,
right.
and we found out with the stock market that, hey, this ain't just a little bitty problem. It's going to be years before we're going to come out of these, situation, because we've come so dependent on so many other factors in it, and we have to rein this in. We have to be in more control of our economy, and we were in control of part of a big factor of our economy when we were energy dependent.
Sure, of course.
Just a few years ago, you know. And I'll be honest, I know that there's other factors involved with, some of this, situation. I mean, let be absolutely straightforward with it. When the economy was in the gutter,
right.
you know what I'm saying, and, we had COVID, people didn't drive as much, you know what I'm saying? So a commodity just like cows or just like wheat or just like whatever, you shut them taps off, it takes a while to bring those back up. And to some degree, there was, some oil companies that went belly up, you know what I'm saying, and some of the wells were shut down, getting them back up. But when Biden come into office, he exacerbated, he thought by a stroke of his pen to stop the Keystone Pipeline, to quit drilling, to quit giving an incentive, for a pie-in-the-sky dream of his or, the left in regard to let's just make everything, non-carbon related.
Right.
There is not such a situation.
There's not such a thing.
There's not such a situation. But let's go ahead and turn this ship around.
Bizarre, wasn't it?
It is bizarre, and look at what's happened. I mean, we are working to a different type of energy economy, in my opinion.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And you're an economist, so
Yeah.
you see that also. But it has to be driven by the marketplace and not by the
Exactly.
government.
Yeah. And free market economics, Austrian economics, those are the basis of good governance, I think. Good governance comes out of a capitalist system in which the government's there to protect your property rights. And, capitalism, people kind of give it a bad name, especially, the academics these days. But capitalism wasn't a system that was invented. Capitalism was it's the system that arises from people having sovereignty over themselves, over their farms, over their property, over capital that makes more capital, over their productive means. And that is, getting back to that, is what we have to do. And what has happened is the way that was subverted was through the dollar. Because now, if the dollar is supposed to be a store of value, but that store of value is being eroded, and it's being eroded ever quicker now. I mean, I think we just got the inflation numbers out yesterday, 9.1. And this is what I talk about on the website, dustinhill.org. And I hope all your listeners go out there, read my policy pieces on there. And I know they're nerdy and long, but guess what? That's the kind of situation we're in, and this is a job application. I want people to read those things about how hyperinflation is going to start and how the government wants it to start. If you look at everything, the messaging coming from the administration is, we're doing everything we can to try and tap down this inflation. But they're not, the actions don't say that.
No policy.
Exactly.
in regard to that.
Because it's a sorting mechanism. And by sorting mechanism, I believe that the federal government knows the writing is on the wall. This system is unsustainable. So what they're doing now is they're trying to extract as much wealth as they can, as fast as they can, from what you'd call the flyover states, the red states, the rural places. Our economy now is, we hoover up as much wealth as we can through the dollar every year, and then DC kind of turns the money spigot onto the things that it wants, right? There's not a lot of stuff in mid-Missouri for the federal government to spray money on. Agricultural subsidies being one thing. But the DC bubble and their lackeys, the New York financial bubble, the Silicon Valley, those have a lot of programs on which DC spreads the wealth, so to say. And the DC bubble there's this money hose coiled around it. And that money hose is really, really leaky. And a lot of our federal elected officials are taking in a lot of money out of that money hose. So getting that back to where, this thing is either going to break, or the only solution is to shrink DC. If we do not shrink DC, if we don't cut down on 80% of these crazy agencies with all their, the bureaus within these agencies are out of their minds. And take any agency and I will tear it apart, where, listen, this thing has gone so far off the rails. This thing is so far afield of where it started, the good intention that it started on. These agencies are now how we make slaves of the American people. Because we don't do it with chains or shackles anymore, we do it with a check. Right? The Department of Education, here's a check if you teach this and this and this. And all these, like CRT and all these other things, they're there to distract us. They're there to cause discord between people at our level.
Sure.
Right? The SBA.
Doing a damn good job.
And they're doing and that's the thing, they're doing a great job. Look at any media right now. And what you see on the TV is you see people up in arms about issue A, issue B, all the issues right at the heart. But this is what I'm trying to get, and I'm trying to show mid-Missouri is underneath all of that is these are distractions meant to keep you angry so you don't notice the federal hand in your pocket. And we have a chance this year. This has been an insurgent blitzkrieg campaign. I wanted it that way because I didn't want the DC establishment to be able to react to me. Because guess what? We've had a 14-year congressman who's gotten super complacent. He's been in there a long time, and he probably thinks he's got this thing sewn up in the bag. but this interview here, all the ones I do 3-4 times a week, the word's getting out there in the best way possible, and the word's getting out there from just people talking to each other. And they're saying, hey, this kid from rural Montgomery County who's come home after 23 years of being in war zones in D.C. and all these other places, I think he gets it. I think he gets it, and I don't see him going to D.C. and just being like an AOC or like a pushover. Because I could have stayed in D.C. I could have stayed there and made a few $1 million and been part of the bubble. Yeah. Well, you know, and here, but we're going to have 4 people on the ballot. Yeah. No, I know you don't. But we don't need another one of those. Because you saw when she first got in, if you remember, the establishment was scared of her. The Democratic establishment was scared of AOC. But guess what they did? They went to work, and now she's just one of the zombies up there. Missouri's 3rd district has a chance this year. I'm basically the only one running against. There's 4 people on the ballot, but we can actually get one in. We can get one through the defenses. We can get one through the membrane. And imagine the political capital, Mr. Slotnick, if Missouri's 3rd district chooses former Marine, war zone contractor, you know, hometown kid, over a 14-year incumbent who was going to be the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. You don't get any more swampy than the banking committees in D.C. Imagine the message that sends to D.C. from Missouri's 3rd. It would be incredible. I mean, when we win this primary, I'm saying when we win this primary already. When we win this primary, I'm expecting a lot of calls the next day. Like, how'd you do this? And I'll be like, well, talk to Charlie up at White Mule Winery. He had me on his show. I guess it got out there. But that's just it. Back here in our district, in the rural communities, that's the media we care about, is word of mouth, other people, and maybe a little bit of authenticity. That's what we look for. And, yeah, here I am. Send me.
You know, on the economic situation, we were talking when we were barbecuing a week or 2 ago, and the boys, both of my boys and son-in-law was there, and you know, we talked about this inflation situation and where we are in regard to that, and I said, well, you know, gas was XYZ, you know, or is XYZ, and I said, well, and we were talking about, you know, Biden in 24 and whatever, and I said, I don't know a whole lot other than by practical assumptions, but you know, this gas situation is going to be over, you know, before 2024 ever comes close to getting here. That was my prediction. Okay.
Okay.
And I do believe that I don't know if these are the merits that we're seeing today, but I just don't think in really supply-demand economics, and you know that too, is that there's an incentive and there's competition in the marketplace from wherever that comes from, that money is going to rule over that, and
sure. And
we are going to find a way, you know what I'm saying, to get more gas, you know what I'm saying, on the market, and I think that will be not an inflationary factor. What my big concern with, you know, you need cell resources to develop any economy.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and we just talked about the capital, you know, we talked about the entrepreneurship and those kind of things. But our thing that we have to resolve in this country, in my opinion, is our labor shortage.
Right.
Because that is real, Dustin, and we have to have a policy to blend in with the economic forces that are there that we have avoided, you know, and if we want to make America great again, okay, we're going to have the labor to get that job done. And that's going to go counter, I think, you know what I'm saying, to a lot of knowledge that is out there, but I don't know how else to get the job done if we're going to continue to spend as we're spending, you know, as far as families, and want to, you know, make my grandkids, you know, have opportunity. We're going to need some labor in order to do that. And I see policies, big picture, I see wars, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
with amongst us. I mean, I believe that we need to build a wall. I think we need to absolutely control what is coming in. But we're going to have to talk seriously about how many people we really need to give green cards to. And I don't think that's a conversation that anyone wants to have.
Yeah, probably not at the highest levels. I mean, I'm totally with you. The labor shortage, the gas prices, all these things, if you look at what the administration does in response to them, it almost seems counter to what you should be doing, like the COVID. What we did is we said, everybody stay home now, and we'll print a bunch of money. So production goes down, nobody's producing anything, but we're going to inspire demand by giving people a lot of money. Now we're going back the other way. We're trying to destroy demand, because that is one of the few ways that you can actually control inflation, is cut down on demand. Now, that's the way they want to control inflation, is by destroying demand. They don't want to destroy inflation by actually shrinking the government, the thing that prints the money into existence. That's the one that you'll never hear on mainstream media. They never seem to get that one, like, hey, well, what about this giant behemoth federal government that's printing itself and us into oblivion? The labor shortage, same thing. We've got a labor shortage. Oh, well, let's pay people to stay home. It's just nonsensical. There's another big thing with the labor shortage, which is our birth rates haven't been replacement level for so long. And that's one of these issues that I'll always go back to economics with. Why not? It's because we've ripped the family apart. We've ripped the family apart by stripping down the work ethic, stripping down the currency, right? We strip down the work ethic by stripping down the currency. We've taken the value.
Yes.
Exactly. We've made the dollar fake. So now, instead of an economy based on production like capitalism, where, hey, White Mule Winery, we want to sell something to customers. How about we make a really good product, great wines, great service, a great atmosphere. Let's give people something they want to exchange their value for. Now we just say, okay, well, let's just try and scam as much. It's almost like a circle of scamming. I'm not saying White Mule Winery does that, right? But that's what the federal government is inspiring by making the money, the currency, worthless. Is now there's more. We've gone from an economy of production to an economy of plunder. And the people plundering the most, the entity plundering the most out of us is the United States federal government. And Congress is the way they're pressing it down on us, because they're making us subservient to the will of this elected managerial class. Congress is no longer leaders. They're not leadership. They're not leading us anywhere. Congress is there to manage us.
Not doing a very good job of it.
Well, you say that. They're doing a good job of managing us. And that's but somebody's going to break through. And here's the thing. Somebody is going to eventually break through, and this year we can do it.
Well, I retract that. You know, they're not managing this country, but they are managing individuals.
There you go.
You know, and I absolutely concur with that, but that's not what America's about.
No.
You know, we're about those freedoms.
Right.
You know, and those things, you know, somebody needs to spend some time managing the numbers up there. There's no question about it all, and I don't know if it's easy out here, because our debt, our debt now is greater than our GDP, and you know, those are never happened since World War II.
Exactly.
You know?
It's bizarre. And it's irresponsible.
I don't think that we have the same attitude here. I wasn't around at the end of World War II, but I don't think we have the same collective attitude, you know, in this country as we did to come out of World War II and make this country great, because we're way too complacent on so many things.
We're complacent, and that's the way the government wants us. They want us dependent, and they want us, you know, subservient and controllable. So the things that we need to invest in as a country, as a state, as a district, as hometowns, the things we need to invest in are human capital. You know, teaching the younger generation. You know, I'm looking forward to getting back. I'm an NRA certified firearms instructor. teaching people how to use guns responsibly, giving some of that back. And we need to invest in community. As this economic pressure tightens and squeezes everybody, community and building these bonds are going to become so much more important. They're going to be, those are the things, and you know what? They're free. So
We are, we're talking to Mr. Hill here, Dustin Hill, running for the 3rd District, U.S. Congress.
Yes, sir.
And I'm having a good time doing it, but we need to take a little break here on KTUI 1560 AM, 94.1 FM, or Facebook Live, and we'll come back to Dustin and let him give you all of the information to dig deeper,
There you go.
into Dustin's point, because he's made a lot of relevant economic and governmental points here. There's no question about it all. But let's change the subject, Grace, for just a second and tell us what's going on in our neck of the woods here this Thrasher Show weekend.
It is.
I remember that. You know why?
Why?
Because I got married during the Thrasher Show. You remember?
No, I don't remember. I do not remember.
That's a
that,
real
but-
tell.
how many years ago, sir?
38.
38 years
This will
married.
be 38.
Wow.
Yeah, it's,
The 20th, right?
yep. So, it's coming.
It is coming. Yep, this weekend, July 15th, 16th, and 17th is the 60th Gaston County Threshers Show at the Community Park in Rosebud. They will be having events all day long on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until 3. So make sure you go out and support Rosebud and the Threshers Association.
So much to do there, and if you want to talk about values, you want to talk about community, you want to talk about
Traditions.
good food and the way things used to be, the Thrasher Show is the theme, and that's where it is, because you will see things that made this country great and still do. You will see those things that were part of our history, but here in Gaston County, they're still part of us. And go there, check it out, watch these people, because they put a big effort into this, and it'll guarantee you it'll be a great success.
It will be great.
So this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, be there.
Yep, $10 at the gate. Children under 12 with an adult are free. And that is good for all 3 days. You get a pen.
Well, and just a little bit more in regard to that, because they do everything that you can imagine there in regard to the old way of doing things. They cut lumber, on an old sawmill. They do thrashing. They have tractor pulls. They have horse pulls. They have a lineup of steam engines and doing thrashing themselves. If you've never seen it, it's something to experience. And the people of Rosebud is one of the greatest communities on earth, as well as Owensville and Sullivan and everybody in this area. But everybody knows what I'm talking about, because it's real, it's current, and get out and support the Thrasher Association.
Absolutely.
You said that was $10 at the gate?
Yep.
Yeah.
So 38 years ago, what was probably the ticket price there, Charlie?
I didn't go that day. I wanted to, but that's a great point.
It was probably a dime, maybe,
I'm
or
gonna go
something.
check.
Yeah.
Here's part of the relevant history. They've got a badge that you wear.
Yeah.
For every year, there's a different steam engine or something
Okay.
on there. My brother's got
them all?
Got every one of them, and I'll have to check with
Yeah.
him, because he's a better historian than I am.
Yeah.
So what else we got?
The Holy Family Parish in Port Hudson is having a fried chicken dinner drive-through July 17th from 11:30 until 4:30 p.m. $15 per plate. They will not be having their annual picnic this year, so this kind of takes place of that.
So that is July the 17th, right?
Yep, 11:30 to 4:30, fried chicken.
Get out and support the Holy Family Parish down on Highway C. It's a great place to go. give you their hospitality, and I ate quite a few meals there. It's
Pretty
not all of them, but quite a few. So we got something going on here.
Yep, this Friday night we will be serving steak, lasagna, shrimp, and beef kebabs from 5 until 8:30. Saturday we will have pizza, wings, and hamburgers from noon until 5, and then our steak dinners after that.
We doing chicken fried steak?
Yes, we are. And then Sundays all you can eat,
Good
we have
guess.
fried chicken and roast beef from 11 until 3:30. Dave Benson will be here this Sunday in the pavilion.
That's a new item that we've been talking about doing,
Try it out.
and you know, Karen's recipe is excellent, and we understand the economic situation, and we understand that, you know, economics and price is important, especially with families and working people that have to fill up their gas tank here
Sure.
and drive back and forth to St. Louis every day. So we wanted to make sure that they could have the White Mule experience on a Friday night. That would include steak, but not cost them, you know, as much. So I'm not sure how you guys have priced it, but guarantee you it'll be good. I guarantee you it'll be filling in our style, and do not come because you got the family with you, or you want to, you know, spend the night out. Okay, so you're up to speed here, and now we're going to go back to Dustin for just a couple of minutes here.
Yes, sir.
And first of all, thank you for being here, veterans, for the Veterans Cause.
Yes, that was excellent.
You
Thank you.
are one, and you wouldn't have been here today without that, because
That's right.
it absolutely showed me that you were serious.
Yeah.
You had a message, and I'm glad for you to communicate what's going on with your knowledge and experience of the situation.
Well, thanks for giving me the chance, Mr. Slavak. I really appreciate it. And it's, you know, we're in hard times. We are. It's hard to come home to the community I left so long ago. You know, for 23 years, I've just been kind of a visitor, you know, going back and forth here and overseas. And to be finally home, but to see people, you know, working ever harder and harder and harder, you know, but people are leaving. People follow resources, and our resources, whether it be monetary or anything else, are leaving our communities. And to know, because the American taxpayer has privileged me with an education, to know the scam, kind of to have seen behind those curtains, how I can give back to Missouri's Third is kind of explain that and run the best campaign I can. And I got to tell you, the response we've gotten from the district has been tremendous. People are ready for something new. And this year is always going to be hard on incumbents, because if you've been in Congress for 14 years, well, obviously we're here now. So whatever you've been doing or not doing hasn't been working very well. And it's now just a race against the clock to the primary August 2nd. How many people can me and my team reach to let people know, no, there's another guy in this race. It's not just going to be business as usual. And if you want to make a real change, let's send somebody new. Let's send a warrior. You know, I'm not a banker. I'm not an insurance guy. I'm not part of the merchant class, really. I'm a former Marine and contractor and everything else. I'm part of the warrior class. But, you know, as things turn in our society and our civilization, our empire, those things turn too. So DustinHill.org, read the policy pieces, join the team, Dustin Hill for Congress on Facebook. You know, kick the tires, put me through my paces.
Thank you for being here. Good luck, good health to you, and we will see you again at the White Mule.
Yes, sir, you will.
Good to have you along. We'll be back next week, right?
Yep.
From the Gaston County is, no, we got
That's
2
the week
weeks.
after. Yep.
Okay, you keep me straight, Grace.
You're good.
God bless you. Get out and do something this weekend. Remember the Thrasher Show. Remember your family, and take care of them. Good Lord willing, we'll see you next week. Thank you.